Hello, I'm Christopher Werps, the Director of Youth Ministries at Paradise Valley United Methodist Church. I'm going to talk about what the church can do about economic inequality. After hearing information regarding the two previous questions, what's happening and why should we care, it's easy to feel daunted at the scope and complexity of economic inequality. But take heart, there are lots of things, both large and small, that the church can do. According to Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, those who wish to preserve society's inequalities actively seek to shape perceptions and beliefs to make such inequalities more acceptable. They have the knowledge, the tools, the resources, and the incentives to do so. Now, no one would consciously allow others to shape their perceptions and beliefs, but the scary thing is, 21st century technology enables those who control it to do so, particularly when our convictions are not as grounded as they might be. The church, not the internet, the media, or the advertising industry, should be the primary place where perceptions and beliefs are formed. In the church, there should be constant reminders that what God values is different from what society values. In the church, a system which creates extreme inequality should be seen as completely opposed to God's plan for the world. And in the church, people should be equipped to bring good news to others, news which is relevant to their everyday lives. There are several specific actions congregations can take to foster a faith-centered response to economic inequality. Host studies of the Hebrew prophets. Their words can bring a new perspective to contemporary Christians, just as they did to the ancient Israelites. Studying the prophetic text teaches that denying large segments of the population dignity and respect is completely out of sync with God's desires. The scriptures condemn complicity in unjust economic arrangements that result in great inequality. Create a shared vision of what God's kingdom on earth would look like. In the New Testament, Jesus' teaching about the kingdom of God were central to his life and ministry. When congregations pray the Lord's Prayer, they pray for God's kingdom to come to earth. But if Christians don't have any meaningful vision of what God's kingdom on earth should look like, the meaning of the prayer is lost. Exercising participants' imaginations can be a powerful and freeing experience. Include the issue of economic inequality in corporate prayers and worship. This may seem incidental, but acknowledging that it is sinful to support systems which inevitably result in extreme inequality is the first step in creating change. Redefine success as a congregation. Recently, a well-known member of a religious order spoke at a Phoenix conference. She told a story about a conversation she had with a CEO. He had a $10 million a year salary and wanted to raise it to $11 million. She asked him what he needed the money for. The CEO replied that it wasn't about the money, it was about winning. The extra money was an index of success. Winning in this context is what's known as a zero-sum game. There will be winners and losers. And in the current financial and political landscape, the winners amass ever-increasing amounts of power, making it easier for them to keep on winning. How can churches help society to redefine what it means to win or be successful? It may not be realistic to redefine how American society uses this term in the near future, but what about individuals or congregations? Members of a church could redefine what is meant by success as part of a group or congregational conversation or study. The spiritual activities suggested thus far are foundational. They're designed to help Christians and congregations recover from an idolatrous faith in specific economic theories and practices. But the kingdom of God encompasses both economics and politics. Faith does not permit proclaiming Jesus as Lord without seeking the justice and love of the kingdom of God in this world. There may be passionate disagreements regarding how to do so. Both individual and institutional shortcomings will be experienced, even when the best efforts in pursuing God's kingdom are utilized. But trial and failure is still preferable to unwillingness to try. It requires courage to venture into the world of economic and political policy. But it must be done. Deeply ingrained ideologies must be superseded. The question is not how big or how small government should be, but rather, is it serving the common good? These issues cannot be framed within the rights language, which typically dominates political discourse. Obligations must also be considered. To live out the Christian faith in a contemporary context requires a commitment to learning the effects of economic and political agendas. Will they contribute toward a more equitable society? Will they help everyone secure the opportunity to live abundantly as children of God? Will they help create a world in which succeeding generations will have opportunities to flourish? These questions help in an analysis of reform strategies. Reform recently suggested include reducing the influence of the financial sector, improving corporate governance, reform of bankruptcy laws, ending government giveaways and disposition of public assets, ending corporate welfare, including hidden subsidies, including access to legal resources and just treatment in the legal system, diminishing the arms race, reforming tax codes, including the reduction of the gap between taxes on wages and capital gains, improving access to education, including preschool, encouraging savings accounts, offering health care for all, strengthening social protection programs, tempering of globalization, reducing unemployment, and retraining the unemployed or underemployed. Other reforms on the state level include raising and indexing the minimum wage, improving unemployment insurance, making state tax systems more progressive, strengthening the safety net, reducing oppressive student debt, and increasing state funding for college and universities. Members of congregations don't determine the actions of Congress or state legislators, but they can increase their knowledge regarding the effects of proposed and recently adopted legislation. They can become proficient at holding lawmakers accountable when their policies are at odds with what is needed to build a more just society. What better place than the church to do this? Additional things congregations can do include develop a plan to advocate for legislation based on the criteria just described, identify issues which are important to the congregation and determine which candidates are willing to support them, discern whether the attitude in the congregation are amenable to building the kingdom of God, and if not, address those attitudes. Investigate whether the values of current and or prospective legislators are amenable to the kingdom and the building of the kingdom. When public officials fail to deliver on their campaign promises, identify ways to hold them accountable. Increasing inequality won't be solved by individuals alone, no matter how committed and brilliant they are. Congregations need to organize their efforts and learn to collaborate with one another. If a congregation doesn't have a church and society ministry team, the pastor should be consulted about forming one. This team can be the focal point for study groups and other actions, and for collaborating with other groups to form expanded circles of awareness and influence. Some congregations or groups are already involved with organizations that are focusing on collaboration and or organizing people, including people who have no voice otherwise. Many of these organizations are working on issues that economic inequality impacts, such as public school funding, health care, job training, and prison reform. Nevadans for the Common Good is one such organization. In Arizona, there's the Valley Interfaith Project, North Arizona Interfaith Council, Pima County Interfaith Council, and Yuma County Interfaith. There are other organizations which are doing similar work. Learning organizational skills and effective collaboration are other important specific steps in combating inequality. Is your congregation already doing something in this regard? Are there additional steps it can take, and or ways that effectiveness can be improved? Thank you for taking the time to seriously examine radical economic inequalities. In a few moments, a leader from your group will help explore specific action steps your congregations can take to reduce the inequality that is compromising our values and our society in so many ways. Doing away with inequality won't be quick or easy, but reducing it over time is doable. Let's help our faith community to take the lead in addressing this crucial spiritual and social issue. And may God bless you and your congregation in this journey.